All right, is Mission Impossible the Final Reckoning a mission you should choose to accept? Let's talk about it now. Hey everybody, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass, and we made it to number 8. This is Mission Impossible 8, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. It's coming to theaters on May 23rd, 2025. It is supposed to be, I think, the end of this franchise. I don't know if it'll be the end of this franchise, but it seems like it's the end of this main storyline. It continues off of 2022's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. This is the final reckoning. Is this a reckoning you want to have? Is this a mission you should choose to accept? My hot take is I think you should watch it later. It's a mission that you might not want to choose to accept immediately. It is a Mission Impossible film that does everything kind of like up a scale, which is good and bad. It has some really great effects, some big action scenes, and it's got a great cast that we all know and love, but it is also overly long, a little bit overly dramatic, lacks some action, and also just kind of like confusing and convenient. So I didn't actually like this as much as I expected to. I thought I would absolutely love this film. I liked Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning has its flaws. Like the first hour or so is not super interesting, but it ends so strongly. I was excited to see how this one panned out. This one is similar, except more, right? It has about 2 hours of not super interesting, slow drama, and then some action at the end, but not as much as I was expecting to. So I think you should wait for it to come to streaming or on demand. But all that being said, I'm going to tell you about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't want to know what happens, if you don't want to know what happens on this mission, I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. Let you get to the spoilers. So in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, you have everyone's favorite super agent Ethan trying to hunt down Gabriel and the Entity. The Entity is this AI that is going to kind of like take over the world, and the only person that can stop it is Ethan and his ragtag group of agents. Are they going to be able to? Are they going to be able to stop Gabriel? Or maybe are they going to use the Entity for themselves? You have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I like about this movie. The first, look, it has great effects. It's a big budget action Mission Impossible film. The effects are fantastic. The sets are great. You get some really big sequences, some elaborate sequences, some things that get destroyed. It's what you would expect. Although strangely, it didn't feel as intense as the last one. There was no scene in this movie that felt like the motorcycle jump off the cliff level. So it did have some big high flying stunts, some big death defying scenes. But for me, the action, maybe it's just because it came a little bit too late in the film. Second thing I like the music. It has good music. It is good dramatic music. Definitely sets the tone. Mission Impossible kind of like is known for its music, and this film has that also. The third thing I loved, I like the cast. It's a good cast. I've liked the Mission Impossible cast. Tom Cruise is a great actor. He is exciting to watch. His team is great. You have Ving Rhames. You've got Simon Pegg, the kind of like stalwarts in this. You've also got Hayley Atwell, who was a newcomer last year, and you've got Esai Morales as Gabriel, who's fantastic. So overall, great cast. Plus, we have some newcomers, some fun newcomers. You've got Hannah Waddingham and Tramell Tillman. Both of them are lovely, lovely additions, as well as many others. And last thing I love the callbacks. There are some callbacks to previous Mission Impossible movies, showing some continuity, some surprises, some characters that we haven't seen in a long time. So I really enjoyed that too. Kind of like takes this story full circle. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, it's fairly slow, and that is kind of, I think that might be a hallmark of Mission Impossible. I don't remember them being slow, but Dead Reckoning had a pretty slow start and then an exciting end. This one also had a pretty slow start and an exciting end. It takes a while. I actually wrote in my notes at one point, like, when does the action start? Because it's just a lot of intrigue, a lot of drama, a lot of like game of chess at the start. Eventually, it does get to the action, but it takes a while to get there. Second thing I didn't love, it's overly dramatic. And again, this is also kind of a hallmark of Mission Impossible. Look, the stakes are big, it's the world, but there is that like Mission Impossible style of speaking that I've enjoyed before. This one it just got a little bit annoying where you have like one person will say a line and the next person will say a line and the next person will say a line. Each one is like super dramatic and each one is like intense. Like, we must stop the entity. If we don't, it will destroy the world. And if that happens, then like just stuff like that. But it really made it feel a little bit too much, a little bit too kind of like full of itself, which kind of leads me to the next thing I didn't love. It's a little bit over the top. And I mean, look, again, the world's at stake. Still, Mission Impossible, it felt a little bit like too much, too dramatic, too Ethan is the one that can do everything. Ethan Hunt is the kind of like savior of this. It felt very much like an Ethan ego trip, which is kind of how the movies are, but this one also kind of upped it more. The fourth thing I didn't love as much, there's not enough action. I love Mission Impossible movies for the action. This one didn't really have a ton until the end. And the end had some big sequences, but if I think they came a little bit too late. They were not as, I don't know, for some reason they didn't feel as dramatic as in Dead Reckoning. I'll go into that in the recap, but it had big action oriented scenes. They were just kind of all at the end and felt like they came a little bit too late. And the last thing I didn't love as much. Look, I said I love the music. The music was good. But the music, I also didn't feel like it had enough Mission Impossible theme. And I love the Mission Impossible theme. I want to hear it all the time when I'm watching that movie. I didn't notice it that much. Maybe it was there and I just wasn't paying attention to it. But when I did hear the dramatic music, it didn't have that like dun 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 like undertone that I have come to love. I mean, it was in there, of course. It's a Mission Impossible movie. I think I'm pretty sure it was in there, but I want it to be like all the time, reminding me this is a Mission Impossible movie. So it just felt like maybe they were trying to go in a different direction. Maybe they just wanted to kind of like have the callbacks, but not have that same style. I don't know. I don't know what the reason was, but it didn't feel like it was in there. So, all that being said, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning comes to theaters on May 23rd, 2025. Like I said, I think you should watch it later. Wait for it to come streaming, wait for it to come on demand. But if you do check it out, you might check it out. You'll probably check it out. It's a big budget action movie. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And look, if I was watching a review and this person said you shouldn't watch Mission Impossible, I would probably go and see it for myself as well. So I understand if you see it. I didn't like it as much as I expected to. I was actually kind of like bored through a lot of it and checking my watch to see how much time was left. And again, for the action part, at one point I looked at my watch. I was like, wait, there's only 35 minutes left. How are they going to do it? How are they going to do it all? How are they going to like, where's like the big scenes I've been expecting? They get there eventually. But again, lots of drama, over the top, silly at times. Take that for what you will. So again, if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now, as quickly as I can for a 2 hour and 50-minute movie. But I will try. I will try to compress it down for you all. But if you don't want to know what happens in this movie, turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So, like most Mission Impossible movies, it starts with a message. Ethan gets a VHS. Again, welcome to the analog world. The kind of like stage here is that the entity is now running amok. It's hacking into government systems. It's taking over systems. You've got it really working to try to get the nuclear launch facilities of these government systems, trying to hack into there so it can control the nukes. And you've got some unrest related to that. You also have like a new kind of like cult of the entity that they bring up at the start and then never reference again. You would think you would have some more cult of the entity references in here, but no, we just see them at the start. They seem to be saying like the entity will bring us peace and prosperity, and that's it. We don't really see them again. And maybe some of the characters later were kind of like in line with the entity, but I don't know, it felt strange. It felt like an interesting thing that they could have explored, but they didn't. Maybe they should have split this into more movies. I don't know. But Ethan, in his analog world, gets a VHS tape that is from, I think, Kittredge, basically telling him, like, he needs to choose. He's always kind of like done his own thing, and we appreciate that and we respect that. But right now, we need you because Ethan has the cruciform key, the key that can unlock something. We all know what it is, but the world apparently doesn't know what it is. Something that could help get the entity or could help control the entity. And it seems like Ethan wants to use the cruciform key to unlock this vault that has the source code so he can destroy the entity. The government wants to use the cruciform key to unlock this vault to get the source code to control the entity. So Ethan is working on hunting down the entity. To do that, he needs to know where this sub went down and also what this key opens. And he thinks Gabriel knows. And so, wouldn't you know it, there is a party at the US Embassy in London, and Gabriel is going there. Like, it's the end of the world. People are concerned about the entity. There's a doomsday clock counting down, and apparently we're still having galas, like big, extravagant galas in London. Ethan goes there looking for Gabriel, but he gets captured. Thankfully, Grace is also there. She was apparently sent by Kittredge to bring him in. She goes against that order, which is weird because I thought that if she had taken the deal, she wouldn't really be bound by what Kittredge wants, and so she could do what she wanted. Apparently, that's going to get her in trouble. Who knows? But she helps Ethan escape one predicament, but then he gets captured. He and Grace get captured again. Now, they are going to be tortured, but Ethan and Grace are able to kind of like escape from this. They pursue Gabriel. Gabriel runs, and he seems to get betrayed by the entity. There is a door he's trying to open with a palm, and it denies him that, and so he keeps running. Ethan gets there, Gabriel gets escapes, but that door apparently opens for Ethan, and it is the door that has the like entity chamber, the chamber that Gabriel would go in and communicate with the entity. It looks kind of like a coffin with a mask that comes down, like a weird like VR immersive set. So Ethan goes in there, and it doesn't seem like a smart move to go in there when the entity seems to be able to like read and process all the data fast. But hey, look, it's Ethan. He's pretty great. So he goes in there, and then he shows him different possibilities and what it wants him to do. It wants him to help it get to a data warehouse in South Africa. We find out later what this is. It is like a doomsday warehouse. It has collected information from human society. It is like offline, off grid. It's solar powered, so it doesn't need, any sort of other infrastructure. And this is kind of like a doomsday vault. If everything goes awry, this will have all the information that someone would need down the line to understand our culture, understand the things that we did, all that stuff. I really hope it's not in some proprietary format. I hope it's some sort of like open standard storage architecture, open operating system, but hey, I guess we'll find out. In the meantime, Ethan and his team, Benji and Luther mostly, have been learning about the entity, and we find out that the entity apparently was a direct result of Ethan's choices. In Mission Impossible 3, I think, he had to steal this thing that we all thought was a biological weapon. It probably was a biological weapon, but this is fairly clever writing, called the Anti-God. And he stole that thinking it was like some sort of super virus, something like that. But it turns out, I guess it was a computer virus. And that computer virus then secretly infected networks. And I think that is what let the entity out. I'm not certain. It was a little convoluted at this point. I was trying to follow along. I'll have to probably watch that sequence again to fully understand. But they got this computer virus that allowed the entity to kind of like start taking over. I think it also infected that Russian sub where the entity was, that caused it to then shoot a missile at itself, sinking that sub and sinking that copy of the entity source code that was on there well below the sea. So while Ethan is doing this, learning about the entity, Gabriel is going to Luther. Luther was in a separate warehouse. He's been working on a few things to stop the entity. One of them is this countermeasure. It's a USB stick that has what they call Luther's algorithm. They just call it an algorithm. I don't know, they could call it a countermeasure, anything like that. But it has Luther's algorithm. Gabriel goes, steals it from Luther, and sets a trap. Ethan, when he realizes that Gabriel's going for Luther, runs as he would, runs super fast, hallmark of Mission Impossible. And he gets there, but unfortunately, a trap has been set. Gabriel already has the countermeasure, and Luther is in there, and there's a bomb in there. Luther is able to disable the detonator of the bomb, like one of the detonators, so it's not going to go nuclear, but it's still going to blow up. He tells Ethan that he's got to go. He's got to get that countermeasure. He's got to, save the world. Ethan then runs. Luther does what he does, saves the city, but the bomb blows up and like blows him up as well. After this, Ethan surrenders to the government, so because he knows he needs them to get to the entity. He is taken before some sort of like governing council, and there he asks the president for an aircraft carrier and to do what he needs. His plan is he needs his aircraft carrier to go get to the spot where that sub was, and then go in there, get the source code, use that to, stop the entity. But there is a push and pull here because the government wants to use the entity to control the entity. So they have like the upper hand in the world. They'll have like the most powerful weapon. They'll be able to kind of control the world. Ethan wants to destroy the entity, which apparently will also destroy cyberspace. I don't know why. I don't know why it would destroy cyberspace, but that is the push and pull here. Keep the entity, super technology, but probably not good for humanity. Destroy the entity, destroy cyberspace, destroy e-commerce, also probably not good for humanity. The president agrees to his plan. The president loans him the use of this aircraft carrier. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is trying to figure out where to go. They know that the sub went down. They don't know where. They use this network of old monitoring stations that are all analog. I guess they monitor activity under the ocean and just kind of make notes of it. They pinpoint the most likely place that this sub would have gone down, and the monitoring station that's closest to that, and they get over there. It's a monitoring station off the coast of Alaska. When Ethan's team gets there, we meet William Donlow, who was the agent in the I think the Black Vault, the vault that Ethan broke into in the first Mission Impossible. He was the agent there in charge of that. He's the one that after Ethan like rappelled down, got the code, rappelled up, accidentally dropped his knife, it's stuck in the desk. William Donlow was the agent that walked in there and saw that knife. Well, apparently, after that breach, he got punished. He was sent to this monitoring station in Alaska, and he's been there for 30 years. But it hasn't been so bad. He's had a peaceful life, and he met his wife there. So, it worked out okay for him. Now, when the team gets there, they ask him to help, and he wants to help, but unfortunately, the Russians are already there as well. They want to build a machine to read these old, large floppy disks that have the data. They want to get the coordinates from those floppy disks because they apparently also are looking for this code, and they, I guess, have their own cruciform key. We thought that Ethan had the only cruciform key. The Russians apparently have a separate one. So they're all looking for this data. And so they are tasked with building a machine to read these old giant floppy disks within an hour. Now, Donlow and Benji are working on this, but Donlow basically says, like, you're not going to find them here. I guess 10 years ago in 2012, I think, a team came and like went through all their records. It felt like a purge. It felt like a cover up. And so after this, Donlow went through all the old analog records and found the one that had coordinates, and he memorized them and destroyed that disk. So Donlow knows the coordinates. So he secretly gives the coordinates to his wife, who then goes to like help watch the dogs. The dogs are very upset because they're all huskies and they're all hungry, and so they want to eat. So she goes to feed the dogs. Grace goes with her, and a Russian agent goes as well. This then leads to a fight where Grace and Donlow's wife are fighting that Russian agent. They're able to overpower him, jump on a sled, and go to the coordinates that Donlow gave her. Donlow, Degas, and Paris are in the main monitoring station. They fight off the rest of the Russians, and Donlow is able to send a message that has the coordinates to Ethan, who went to that aircraft carrier, convinced him to help him. They got two Ospreys to go fly him into the middle of the Arctic Sea, where there is a sub underwater that hopefully got the message. They're like, "Oh, we can't stay here that long. We gotta go." And Ethan's like, "That's fine." He jumps out of the Ospreys into the middle of the Arctic Sea, or wherever this is. I think it's the Arctic Sea. And luckily for him, the sub got the message, and they pop up before he freezes to death, which I think takes about 15 seconds in there, and bring him out in the sub. And in the sub, they agree to help him as well. When those coordinates come, the sub heads in that direction, but Ethan doesn't want to lead the Russians directly to where that sub is, so he has them do a secret maneuver where they turn, and he pops out of the sub and then goes down to the sunken Russian sub to get the source code. When he gets down to that sunken Russian sub, I don't know how he survives. It's probably very, very cold. He doesn't have enough time to really adjust to pressure, so there's going to be some consequences down the line. The sub is unstable. He goes in there, tries to get the source code. It's a pretty exciting scene. Like the sub is kind of like moving slowly, so the water will move around, things will fall off. Ethan is trying to like navigate essentially different perspectives because the gravity keeps changing as the sub is turning. Eventually he gets into the vault. Eventually he gets the source code. I hope the source code it's in like some sort of hard drive. That's why I had this at the start. It's in some sort of like hard drive. I hope it is waterproof. I hope it is seawater proof. It has some exposed contacts, so I don't think it's going to be seawater proof, but it better be because he puts it in a little mesh bag on his suit and tries to make it out. Unfortunately for him, it's dangerous. His way out gets blocked by a heavy thing. I think it was a torpedo that basically blocked it. So he has to go out a torpedo tube. But him in his like anti-pressure suit and insulating stuff is too big for this torpedo tube. So he has to rip it all off. I mean, look, Tom Cruise finds a lot of reasons to be shirtless in this movie. If I look like him, I would too. This felt a little silly because he has to like rip off all the clothes. He's basically just wearing skivvies with his like breathe mask and his hard drive that he's got tucked to his chest, and goes out the tube, goes up, tries to get up there, swimming up there by himself from the depths of the Arctic Sea. I assume he would freeze in like 10 seconds, and the pressure would probably also crush him. But he goes, he gets there, he almost gets to the top, and then he gets saved by Grace. And there is this weird thing about this movie. It feels like almost like a young adult movie. You kind of had that in the last movie as well. Grace played by Hayley Atwell, is clearly the love interest. They project that really early from the start, which is weird because he was doing all this stuff for Grace. Grace kind of was terrible in the first movie. She was like betraying him left and right. She was leaving him for dead all the time, and he still would like do everything for her. They were really trying to force that. They're really trying to make Grace happen. In this movie, she's still clearly the love interest. He's still very interested in her. And so, but they never like acknowledge it. They don't like kiss. They barely hug, except for in these like weird young adult type scenes, which this one becomes because Grace pulls Ethan out of the frigid water into their like mobile depressurization chamber that looks like a pop-up inflatable tent. And he's obviously freezing because he was in the Arctic Sea for probably too long. He's got all sorts of pressure problems. And so he is like shirtless, and Grace is like there giving him CPR in this like very intimate, like very romantic looking scene in this tent in the middle of the Arctic. It feels like the equivalent of like a young adult scene where they're like trying to skirt around the fact that there's relations, but they're not actually going to have them. But this is like the closest they could get to like skirt that line. It feels very much like that. This is the only time they kiss during the CPR. It is the only time they're kind of like intimate. It was very weird, but that happened. Grace saves Ethan, I guess, and she warms up to him and warms him up, warms his body up sufficiently so that he can proceed. Now, another weird thing about this is like they had 3 days to do all of this. In 3 days, Ethan went from the White House to aircraft carrier, convinced them to let him go, in Ospreys to a sub, get into the sub, get ready to do this mission, go into this secret underground sub, come up, survive horrible pressure sickness and horrible freezing cold, not have his body fall apart, all in 3 days. And they still have more to do. So after Ethan recovers, they now have to go to South Africa, where the Doomsday Vault is, because Ethan now has a source code, but he needs Luther's countermeasure algorithm to attach to that hard drive to, I guess, attack the entity. And they know they need to go to South Africa because that is where the entity wants to go. The entity is trying to hack into all the various nuclear assets. It has almost all of them except for America. There's a countdown where they until they expect America's to be breached, and then they'll have control of all the nuclear assets and they'll be able to do what it wants. But it needs a safe spot, and this South African data vault with petabytes of information is where it wants to store itself, I guess, wait out the apocalypse, and then eventually proliferate back into networks somehow. I feel like everything will be destroyed if it does a nuclear war, but I guess that's what the entity wants. So they get there. Gabriel is waiting for them, but so is Kittredge. A shootout happens between Gabriel and Kittredge and some other people. Eventually, Ethan goes to pursue Gabriel while the other people try to get into the vault and save the vault. Their plan is they have to get into this, South African storage vault, connect a wireless receiver that the entity will then be able to use to jump into the vault because that's what it wants. And then once they get the entity in there, they're going to store it in this like holographic storage device, this 5D holographic storage device that's going to store all the entity. I guess it can hold like, I think, like 300 terabytes of information, I guess. It's going to store the entity and then they're going to disconnect it. So the entity's stuck in here, can't go anywhere else. And that is how they're going to control the entity. Unfortunately for them, Gabriel left a 30 megaton bomb in there. So half of the crew goes into this vault to try to start hacking it and try to get the entity in there. The other half of the crew try to disable this bomb. Meanwhile, Ethan is pursuing Gabriel. So on the vault side, Donlo, his wife, and Degas are disabling the bomb. They figure out a way that they can like give themselves 10 seconds to get into the vault before it blows up. They do that. Meanwhile, Benji was shot in the fight. Benji is hurt, so Paris is giving him first aid, even though Paris knows nothing about first aid. All she knows is how to kill, but Benji's walking her through that. And Grace is hacking into this sophisticated storage device, even though she doesn't know anything about hacking. And it's all like turning off the power, grabbing some wires, splicing. Like, it is weird hacking, but that's what she's doing. Benji's leading all this as he's kind of bleeding out. Tense moments. Eventually, they are able to get everything ready for the entity, and the other crew is able to disable the bomb. They are able to get into the vault in time. Ethan, meanwhile, is pursuing Gabriel. Gabriel goes on, gets like a biplane, but apparently he had two. So he gets in one biplane. Kittredge is still pursuing him. He gets in the other biplane. Ethan jumps on Kittredge's biplane, It is a very intense scene. They're up in the air trying to like stop each other. Eventually, Ethan takes over Kittredge's biplane, knocks him out of the plane. Apparently, he had a parachute. When he fell out, he didn't know if he survived. He did survive. So apparently, he had a parachute. Ethan then gets onto Gabriel's biplane. They fight, they fight, they fight, they fight. Eventually, Ethan takes over, and Gabriel's like, ha ha ha, I'm the only one with a parachute. And he jumps off, but he hits like the rudder on the way out, blows his face up, and he dies. So now during the fight, Ethan was able to pickpocket the countermeasure out of Gabriel. So now he's got the countermeasure and the hard drive, but he's trying to fly this thing that is now like burning up. Is he gonna survive? Is he gonna make it? He jumps out. Apparently, he also had a parachute. I don't know where the parachute was. I don't know how he put it on, but apparently he had a parachute too, even though he didn't have it before. Must have been stashed in the seat, I guess. He had a parachute. He opens it up, but it catches on fire. He's falling, and he's trying to connect the countermeasure. And now in the vault, we're waiting for that receiver to go green because that means the countermeasure is connected. That means the entity is coming in there. And they had to have Grace do this because Grace is a pickpocket. She has really good hands and timing. And so the plan is they connect the countermeasure, that receiver turns on, the entity gets into the receiver, goes into that special hard drive, but they have 100 milliseconds between when that hard drive lights up and when they can pull it off, or else the entity is going to go throughout the entire storage area, I guess. So they're waiting. It lights up. We see that hard drive light up also. Grace grabs it. Boom. All the power goes out. Somehow, for some reason, all the power goes out. I guess maybe the entity had hacked into everything. And so when the entity left, everything had to be rebooted, I guess. I don't know. When the power comes back on, we see that they've got the entity in that, holographic storage cube. The world is safe. Ethan is apparently safe. He apparently had a backup parachute as well, so he lands. And part of the, tenseness here is that in the buildup, as various countries' nuclear arsenals were falling, America was the last one left, and they were like, "We have to do a strike on each of the nuclear command centers to make sure that they can't get launched." I don't know why the other countries just didn't like disconnect their nukes. Maybe they can't. I don't know. I feel like you could just disconnect the nukes. Just unplug them so they can't be launched. I don't know. But there was a lot of stress here because America was going to do like a preemptive strike on 8 different nuclear facilities, which were all in like major cities, and then also give their own city up as well. They never said which one. I was trying to figure out in my head which one it would be. I don't think it would be a throwaway one. They probably would have had like a significant one. My guess would have been Los Angeles because it wouldn't have been like strategically important for the military aspects. Like you wouldn't want to do DC or anything like that. But it's a big city. It would be a good gesture. They were gonna like have it as like a goodwill sacrifice. Be like, look, we knew we had to nuke all these other places, so we need one of our own. So please don't come back at us. They never tell you which city it was. Which city do you think it would be? Which city would you sacrifice to save the world? Let's find out. But that was a big tense moment. The president was going to do this, and then she decided no, she's not going to do this. She's not going to be the one to like start a nuclear war. She was going to trust Ethan. Thankfully, Ethan came through. His team came through. They got the entity out. And so everything is saved. Later, we see Ethan meeting up with the rest of his team. I think it's in Paris. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's in Paris. He leaves. He sees all of his team. They come out from the shadows. They all kind of give knowing smiles. Grace obviously is the last one. Grace is the one he's happiest to see, even though they don't have any sort of like romance in this movie. She clearly is a love interest. And then they all melt back into the shadows. And that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Like I said, it was okay. I thought it was a little bit too long. I thought it was a little overly dramatic. Not as good of action as in Dead Reckoning or Fallout. Fallout was a fantastic movie. This one, downward trajectory. But it concludes the series. It kind of like gives you a lot of what you know and love about Mission Impossible. It feels like this might be the last one for Tom Cruise, but it does feel like they're also kind of setting up a new team. Like you've got Paris in there, you've got Degas, you've got Grace. Maybe Grace will be part of this as well. Benji could come back and be like the support role. It feels like they could have some Mission Impossible spin-offs or other series after this. They said that this is like the last one in the series. We'll see. I bet there will be some sort of spin-off after this. But that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. There is no stinger after the credits. Once the credits run, you can leave. But it's coming to theaters on May 23rd, 2025. And if you do see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.